30 years ago, HAN was born with the mission of equipping practitioners with the tools needed to create thriving communities. 3 decades and nearly 500 members later, the mission remains the same, but with an even deeper commitment. As a change association leveraging the power of our cross-sector collective, HAN members share the common goal of developing and preserving affordable housing in the Capital Region. In spite of the challenges we face and widening gaps in the communities we serve, we commit to navigate these waters with real intention, placing our communities and their humanity at the center of all we do. Regional problems require regional solutions. And by now, you've had a chance to explore the Housing Indicator tool and gain a deeper understanding of the challenges we face in addressing our region's housing crisis. The jurisdiction dashboards featured in the platform provide a much-needed baseline that allow us to measure our progress towards solving for the need, 375,000 net new housing units by 2030. Now that we are equipped with the knowledge of where we stand, we can effectively pivot to best meet the needs for housing supply in a more equitable region. The senseless death of George Floyd and the demonstrations and tragic incidents that have since followed have forced an extraordinary discussion about race and racism in America. The very fabric of our society is woven with policies and programs that are intended to maintain the status quo. And we know racial inequities have been embedded in housing long before COVID-19. This pandemic has illustrated yet again that Black and Brown communities are hit first, worse, and most. So as we work towards recovery, let's ensure it's a just and equitable recovery. 375,000 is a daunting number, but behind every one of those units are human lives who deserve a safe and affordable place to call home. HAN is excited to see the dialogues taking place with community members across the region and encourage our members to keep those lines of communication open. However, conversation must not distract us from taking action. Our communities should not be the ones that have to figure out how to make their human needs a priority. There is an entire industry of experts structured to solve our production needs and elected leadership who can boldly tackle systemic racism in our housing systems and repair the harms that have resulted. If hurt and harm can be legislated, then we can also legislate equity and justice. So to obtain different results and truly solve for the need, we must hold each other accountable. HAN's Housing Indicator tool is grounded in this principle of accountability. And I now invite you to hear from some of our members and partners across a variety of sectors who are holding their respective organizations accountable to meeting our region's collective housing targets.
Truist, which is the resulting institution from the merger of BB&T and SunTrust banks, has an even stronger commitment to affordable housing through low-income housing tax credits than its predecessor banks. We have a $3 billion commitment over 3 years, evidencing our solid charge to help create and sustain affordable housing for the greater Washington, D.C. region and across our footprint. We have also committed $210 million over 3 years to loan funds such as the Washington Housing Initiative, in which we've invested several $million to increase affordable housing in the region. We are one of the few entities that have influence on reducing costs on both the supply side and demand side of a transaction. This tool puts a spotlight on the well-known shortage of affordable housing options in our region, but it takes things a step further by pinpointing specific areas that are either meeting targets or those that are in need of additional support. This efficiency allows banks of all sizes to implement focused strategies to influence the state of affordable housing in line with their objectives. Together, we can make a difference, and this tool allows us to work collaboratively to effectively address issues in a tactical manner. Truist has an even stronger commitment to affordable housing than its predecessor institutions. We also stand for better. Since affordable housing in the region is nothing new, and we are constantly looking for new and better ways to address the issue. We have long been partners with HAND, and this tool, quite simply, seems like a better way to get a handle on what's going on with our housing stock. Equally as important, it gives us a roadmap as to where to focus our support to improve housing across the region, and to also meet our 3-year multi-billion-dollar investment commitment in affordable housing, both locally and across our footprint. We have also made a more intense focus on home ownership. For instance, in the Washington area, we've added more in homeowner grants, which should also increase or assist in increasing home ownership rates among people of color. These are just some of the examples of how Truist is choosing to show up, and hopefully this will provide some inspiration for our partner institutions who want to make an impact themselves.
Listen, trying to hit the housing affordability goals is good to do, is good for business. Providing housing for low and moderate income people can be a good, solid line of business, and we have plenty of providers, for-profits and nonprofits, who have shown that for years. Clearly, it's good for our regional economy. And it's also just a good thing to do for the needs of the people. There's plenty of research on having affordable, healthy housing, how that is good for people and for families, for their health, for their education, and for economic reasons. This is good to do for the people. And clearly there is a need in our region. We have seen that through the units, the goals, the numbers that have been shown by the Council of Governments and the analysis done by COG and Urban, that we have a need in our region. And so we need to help meet that need for our people. But here's the thing, we can do this. We have the financial resources in this region. We have smart people and technical skills in this region. Developers, check. Banks and CDFIs, check. Government agencies, check. Architects, lawyers, landscapers, check, check, and check. We can do this because we have the brain power and the financial resources. We have done big things before in the DMV, and we can do this, meet the housing affordability needs that clearly exist in our region if we but have the will. And this is on our watch. So we have to keep in mind that on our watch, it is our responsibility to do the work that's necessary to meet the needs. And we are intentionally now calling out racial equity, like many are, but we must endeavor to build it into our code of how we operate internally and externally, and evaluate our progress and look at and be honest about where we need to do more into the future to make sure that we are being true to the words that are printed on paper. Listen, I'm excited about HAND's housing indicator tool. It reminds me of how you go see a doctor. And when you go to see the doctor, there's a chart that has baselines for what your numbers should be. Your temperature, your blood, your pressure, your oxygen, your A1C. So Urban and COG have come together to give us the baseline that tells us where we need to be. How many new housing units, and housing units that are affordable to low and moderate income people and families. How many do we need to be a healthy region? Urban and COG has given us those numbers, but the HAND housing indicator tool, the HIT, will be our annual physical, our housing checkup. It will give us our housing vitals. The HIT gives us our housing vitals, our preservation, our production, our enabling environment and policy framework, our capital availability needs. Every year when the HIT comes out, it'll be giving us our checkup, our physical. Are we doing enough to ensure the health and safety and viability of opportunity for all people across the region in an equitable manner? Though sometimes we may dread going to our doctor for our annual physical, I get it, but we need it to let us know where we are relative to where we need to be. And that will be the HAND HIT for the housing affordability industry in the DMV. And we can use the results to inform our actions as advocates, as banks, as CDFIs, as developers and foundations and governments and houses of worship and residents, letting us know where we need to be, where we are, and help us think about what we need to do to get to a place of health as a region, the HIT gives us our vitals, our housing vitals. And now we will know what steps we need to take to get healthy as a region. And we have to keep in mind that health as a region means health for people, real people with real names who are living every day, trying to live out the fullness of their aspirations, of their dreams, and of their God-given potential. So let's use the HAN housing indicator tool, all of us who are members of HAN and beyond, to help us make for a better region.
This housing tool will benefit the region enormously. Keeping track of what our various jurisdictions do and don't do is very important and will allow us to put pressure on all aspects of the production system to do more when needed. A long, hard road for the Washington metro area to come together, because we're essentially the equivalent of 3 states and many counties. And so getting the collaboration of all of these jurisdictions under COG is a huge accomplishment. And the tool will allow everyone in the region to know what all of the jurisdictions are doing. This is something that I value very much. Many years ago, I worked with COG on a project to bring the jurisdictions together. So I am very glad to see this happening. Understanding, for those of us who are nonprofits, understanding what is actually being accomplished with our local and federal funds is an important policy issue that allows us to know when we need to do more to get the goals accomplished. It's very expensive to develop in our metro area, as we all know. And so it takes a huge effort, a lot of political will to put the resources behind the affordable housing that we need. This tool will tell us what we are accomplishing and how it is being done. For instance, in the District of Columbia, we now use public land for affordable housing. We'll be able to see what that's getting accomplished, and other jurisdictions may adopt the tool. Fairfax County also uses public land, and hopefully we'll be using public land again soon. This will let us monitor what has to be done. The nonprofit world has pushed as hard as it can. It's doing everything it can with all of the resources that are made available. I see nonprofits as tools of executing government policy. We're the ones that go and get done what the governments need to have accomplished. This tool will let us do more of that, because it'll allow us to demonstrate the need for more funding. And funding is really the bottom line. It is where the action is. There's no magic out there. There are no waving magic wands and it will happen. It's a matter of how much money is there to be spent, and then using the various ways of spending that money.
JBG Smith founded the Washington Housing Initiative to bring new private capital at scale to addressing housing affordability. We believe that this is a critical business issue and community issue for our region, and we wanted to model the way that the private sector can be a part of the solution. Well, we know empirically that where you grow up determines more about your future than your parents' income or educational level or any other factor. And so, if we truly want to have an equitable society, then we have to make space for people of all incomes to live in high opportunity locations. And we know that the fastest, least expensive way of doing that is to create opportunities for housing affordability in high opportunity neighborhoods. So mixed income housing is really essential to promoting equity. Housing affordability is a business issue, and we need business leaders to tackle it strategically, not as a charitable cause. The Washington Housing Initiative and efforts like Amazon's Housing Equity Fund are examples of the impact that private capital can have on housing affordability. If other business leaders would commit just a fraction of their resources to helping address this issue, we could have a transformative impact on the affordability of our region, the economic climate, as well as the lives of hundreds of thousands of Washingtonians. Addressing housing affordability is just common sense, and it's good business. For our region to be vibrant, thriving, growing, and diverse, we need to have a full complement of housing that's affordable to residents up and down the income spectrum. And it takes all of us working together, the business community, the government sector, the nonprofit sector, and philanthropy to help make that happen. None of us can do it individually, but all of us working together can have a transformative impact on the region.
And I'm Community Health Director at Kaiser Permanente in the Mid-Atlantic region. We know that there is an enormous need in our region for more housing, and particularly in the Purple Line corridor in Montgomery and Prince George's counties, where a new transitway is likely to lead to even greater pressure on availability of housing and housing prices. We've been participating with the Purple Line Corridor Coalition through an entity that we convened called the Housing Accelerator Action Team. The Housing Accelerator Action Team brings together nonprofit and for-profit housing developers, bankers, lenders, elected officials, local government officials to mobilize around the goal of making sure that there is no net loss of 17,000 homes that are currently affordable to people with low incomes in Montgomery and Prince George's counties within 1 mile of the Purple Line. So we've made a number of grants, and we're making loans to assist nonprofit housing developers primarily with the production and preservation of housing. We've also endowed a loan fund called the Prescription Home Fund, which is administered by the Enterprise Community Loan Fund. We have a batch of several projects that are moving towards completion and assembling their financing. Affordable housing takes a long time from concept to execution. It may be 5 to 7 years from the time the investor begins planning for a project before the homes are actually available for occupancy. So it's a long-term project. As a healthcare institution that is deeply committed to the health of the communities we serve, Kaiser Permanente, with the resources that we have, we seek to address the social determinants of health, such as stable housing, economic opportunity, access to a good education, access to food security, and other social determinants that enable people to live healthy and thriving lives. So we want to work with other healthcare providers and other major employers. The availability of affordable housing, of course, is very important to our workforce as well as to the broader community and to the people that we serve through the provision of healthcare.
What I'll say is we are all housers. And what we know for sure is that the next vanguard in not just this industry, but our country are our customers. And so if we are to ensure that folks can live in dignity, can live in arm's reach of all of the benefits that this region provides, then it's incumbent upon us to get in the game. There's no easy effort here. It's all difficult. And we recognize that going in, But what we most recognize is that we are placing extraordinary investment in communities that have suffered from rampant disinvestment, and in communities in particular that have not had the focus that they ought to. And so our charge is to figure out how we meet folks where they are and ensure that the children in our neighborhoods, the children in our communities have the best opportunity for equity. And that starts with housing. While we are technically a public housing authority, we have had, just like many other housing authorities in the nation and certainly in this region, to completely remake our business model. And we did it in service. We're not doing this because we are a developer who's interested in making money, but we are interested in enhancing our footprint. So we want to preserve the opportunities that we have, and we want to go out and make sure that we are ginning up new opportunities and partnering with the private sector, with the nonprofit sector, with the traditional government sector to ensure that there is affordability across our region. And certainly for HOC's part within Montgomery County. And so what we recognize is that while there are very few resources focused on our housing mission, it's also incumbent upon us to be innovative. And sometimes that means leading the charge. It means taking risks. It means thinking about our business differently and delivering to our customers in a different way, interfacing with those folks who are most impacted by policy and practice. And while we're talking about policy, it also means that we have to take the time and effort to inject real equity interest in every single thing we do. At this agency, every single light bulb, every single nut or bolt, every car in our fleet, every piece of paper, every bit of ink should be focused on three simple things: getting people housed, keeping them housed, and helping families and individuals reach their fullest potential. The folks we're serving are the folks who suffer under the lash of almost no resources. And it doesn't matter what area we're talking about in life, whether it's housing or food, economic opportunity, stability for employment, educational opportunities, recreational opportunities. Bottom line is we have, and housing policy to this point has created vacuums of resources. And the folks that we're serving most, unfortunately, are without resources. And so part of our job in getting folks housed, keeping them housed, and helping them reach their fullest potential is also to extend resources, all right, to ensure that folks not only get there, find a domicile, but they're able to keep a domicile. Not only are they able to keep a domicile, but they're able to thrive.
We believe also that a key role of philanthropy is to advocate for and to invest in Black and Brown communities. So let's be clear. While the crisis across the board in our communities, and many people are feeling the effects of the unaffordable housing crisis, it is particularly felt by Black and Brown communities. And so we contend that we need to have specific solutions for our Black and Brown sisters and brothers in the region. And again, we know that local government cannot solve this housing challenge alone. The private sector, again, must come to the table with the government, with philanthropy to help problem solve, advocate, and invest in viable solutions. We also contend that we have a unique role as a community foundation to rally our base of donors, our base of funders, and of course the philanthropic partners, many who are already at work in this arena, to invest in the solutions that will bring us more affordable housing to the region. We know that the tool will not only hold us accountable, but it will also hold other cross-sector leaders accountable to this charge to create more affordable housing. And frankly, very excited to have this tool in the movement and in the work to advance the conversation and to help strengthen policies and leverage public funding and private funding to help meet the affordable housing crisis in the region. A few years ago, the Greater Washington Community Foundation helped to convene the Partnership to End Homelessness. And it's a public-private partnership to deal with the affordable housing and homelessness crisis in Washington, D.C. We could easily see a trajectory where we're linking up with other collaboratives and initiatives across the region with the kind of lens of the HIT tool to inspire and provoke more regional conversation and collaboration around the issue of affordable housing and homelessness. The other role that we could play is related to philanthropy's proximity to wealth. This is the case for institutional and corporate funders. It is also the case for us at the Greater Washington Community Foundation. We think that we can play a supportive role that invites philanthropy into a deeper conversation, a more honest conversation, a more transparent conversation, maybe even a more vulnerable and transformative conversation about how the wealth that we hold was created in the first place, right? And what we could ascertain without a whole lot of work is that a lot of the wealth that is created in the American context and many other contexts is created on the backs of Black and brown people, Black and brown communities. And so as a sector, the philanthropic sector, who has proximity to wealth, right, inviting our partners to interrogate how that wealth was created, on whose backs was it created, and how that wealth could be redeployed to repair any harm that it has caused, and to invest in solutions that are at the scale of the problems that Black people, brown people, indigenous people, other people of color are experiencing. And of course, affordable housing would be at the center of that. Raising the conversation and framing the problem and the solutions at the systemic level is what we have the opportunity to do. Because the affordable housing crisis is a systemic problem, it will also require systemic solutions, and philanthropy has the unique convening power to make that so. I think that we have the opportunity as philanthropic partners to convene folks, to experiment, to take risks maybe where other sectors aren't ready to take risks, and frankly, to raise the conversation from the level of housing and homelessness as an event to housing and homelessness as a systemic problem, and a signal that our system is doing two things at the same time. It is doing what it was designed to do, and it is destroying lives at the same time. And the question is, how can we get folks in our sector and in other sectors to realize that this systemic problem requires a systemic solution, and it will require all of us, philanthropy, government, folks on the ground, advocates, developers, every corner of our community to solve the problem. And so we're excited about the possibility. We are thrilled about the level of accountability that this tool will bring to the movement for affordable housing in our community. And again, we celebrate HAND, we celebrate the Council on Governments, and we celebrate Urban for putting this critical tool forward. Thank you. And in the words of my African ancestors, Pumoja Tuta Shinde, Pumoja Tuta Shinde, together we will win. Together we will win.